The Boston Greeks podcast is here and ready to bring Greekness back.
Hey everyone, welcome to another fantastic episode of the Boston Greeks podcast. I am Ari. I am coming to you live with a very special guest today. I'm pretty sure if you are a follower of the Boston Greeks podcast, you have heard of this woman, seen her, come across her somewhere, somehow. She's a staple in the Boston scene. Before I get to her, let me introduce my co-host, Foti Stamos. Hello, Foti. How are you?
Sorry, I'm doing great. Excited for another episode. And to your point, I think everybody knows our guest that's coming on board.
Yeah, I definitely think we're not introducing her to anybody, but where they may get to know her a little bit more than they do, we'll see. But let's get into it. Foti, you want to give her a little intro?
Absolutely. Not just a longtime friend, but a iconic representative in our Greek community, not just in Boston, but beyond, all over New England. Had a great show that ran for many, many years, which I was very thankful to be a part of on some of her segments, and has also made an impact on providing important information, news, guests, you name it. Let's bring on our guest, Eleni Vidalis. Eleni, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
My God, thank you very much. It's so great to see you both. I don't know how iconic I am, but thank you for all those kind words. It's kind of odd, different kind of feeling to be in the chair where I get interviewed. But I'm so looking forward to this. And yes, we are good friends, all three of us. And it's been I enjoyed many years of a good relationship, both on and off the camera with both of you and your support. And for that, I thank you both.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure for sure. Just make sure, Eleni, because you're such an interviewing professional, make sure you don't turn the tables on us and start interviewing us. This is about you. So we're going to keep the focus on you.
I'm nervous.
But, Eleni, you've been in many people's homes via television for 20 plus years, if I can remember correctly.
25.
25 years on a segment that aired, if I'm not mistaken, every Monday.
Yep.
That all of the great communities across New England got to not just see you, but also got to listen to a lot of the important topics and issues that you brought to your program that was so important to our communities, that the service that you provided, I think, was unmatchable compared to other media outlets that are out there providing, local news for our Greek American communities. But, I'm sure you spent many, many sleepless nights, long hours, long days running around, but you made it happen. And for those that are listening to the segment, can you give us a little bit about how this all started for you, the journey of where it started and how it went through the years?
Sure. So about maybe within about a year before we actually kicked off the show, my mother kept talking about how there was nothing Greek on TV. Everything was Spanish or there's a lot of Spanish at the time. And she was like, what happens to us? Why can't somebody who doesn't have the ability to find somebody to interpret what they need to know? This was a time before, now we see on our bills, and I know we all look at it, even though we don't want to look at the bill, but we see how σημαντικές πληροφορίες, παρακαλώ μεταφράστε. That wasn't even listed. Greek wasn't even listed in those inserts. So my then co-host, Alex Gerntas, took it upon himself to find ways for us, for Greek to be on the airways in Boston. And we were lucky enough to do it through community access television in Boston and through various endeavors and with the help of many people, we were able to be on other towns. And then first with Adi trying, and technology, I guess, just wasn't there at the time, not on the Greek Boston's part, but on the community access side. And then, afterwards, Tanya and Nick we were able to stream live through Greek Boston around the world. But what it took. I mean, I don't know if I had any sleepless nights, to be honest with you. I mean, unless one of my kids was irritating me or got my blood pressure up. No, I was lucky enough to not have. There were times I got upset, not because of criticism, but because of nastiness and some backstabbing, but not because I was stressed as to how the show would go. I believed then and I believe now that I just had to bring myself to the table. I can't bring anybody else. I could only bring myself. And it would be very difficult for me to be on the camera or on the radio with a filter. So that's what people got. Unfiltered me, the way you would get me if you were in my house right now.
Well, I threw the word out there. Just
you guys filter now? Do you guys? You
can say anything you want. You can be as nice and as mean as, whatever you want to do. It's we're
no, I'm saying Foti and Adi. Like when you're doing what you're doing, don't you bring your own self to what you're doing now? That's
the only way we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And you raise a lot of great points because I think those points needed to be heard. So yes, absolutely. And that's why we continue to listen, to view and follow, because there were definitely topics that might have not wanted to be discussed in certain ways because maybe you didn't want to offend somebody. Maybe you didn't want to show sides, but you brought it to the table, like you said.
Oh, I always took sides.
And when you first said there weren't any sleepless nights, I was like, wait, are you sure you were doing a Greek show? Because there's a lot of stress behind that. But you have a professional attitude about it. So, and you are who you are. You're not hiding it. You're bringing it to the table, as you said, and that's the way you have to be. I think that's why you had 25 years.
When I was younger, because of my dad, I was brought into the Greek community, the Homogenia and Parade and Silogus and all that stuff very early on. And yes, maturity was with age comes maturity, and maturity not necessarily like I don't go like that, but immaturity in the sense of the way you handle things and the way you think things through. Easy for me to say. So in the community, when I was involved, things bothered me a lot, and yes, definitely would cause me sleepless nights. But by the time I made it to the program, I realized that I don't know, it was just an attitude I had. I don't know how it came, but I said, you know what, this is
right.
I can only be me. And Eleni is somebody who will give you her opinion, especially if you ask for it, and then it just turned out that that's what people wanted. They wanted to hear the other side, or the side where, they know it. Through the years, I like to believe that I got the point that, that people knew that what I was going to say, if I didn't stand behind it, I wasn't going to put it on the air.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
And, I have a fond memory that I believe, off the top of my head, I believe your show was probably one of the first media exposures I had as when I was with Boston. And I just remember that it was just very, very professional. You had the studio, you had the lights, you had the cameras, the camera people, all these things. I was like, wow, I just made it. I made it because this is where I am right now. And I always remember that fondly. And I always want you to understand that was my perspective. It was
thank you.
Thing, really great. And it was very impressive.
When I did the finale, before I announced that it was going to be, that I was going to end it all end the program on the 25th anniversary, right on the 25th mark. I thought about it. I didn't discuss it with anybody. It was on my mind, for a solid year. Now, and then 6 months before the date came is when I announced it. Why I did that and that it took that long is because I wanted to make sure that I was ending for the right reasons, or I was, or should I continue? Is it the fact, am I going to, I wanted to make sure that the reasons were right. And the reason being was I put so much of myself into it. I only had one child when I started this. And, I had two more. I didn't stop. I had a couple of, health issues that despite that, even with a small break, I came back. I didn't end it. And I always wanted it to be professional. It didn't matter if I wasn't getting paid for it or if it was anybody to do with the Greek the Greek program had, was on a volunteer basis. And it didn't matter if I wanted to be proud of it at some point later on. And most importantly, I wanted my kids to be proud. And I didn't want them to be embarrassed by what their mother did, years down the road. So when the last day of the finale came, there were so many meetings about it that somebody turned around and said, Kala, Uti menegaki δεν κάνει τόσα meetings για το finale. And I said, you know what? For 25 years, I wanted to make sure that my guests looked good, that they knew that whether I agreed with them or not, that they were respected. So everything had to be done professional. Everything had to be timed. Everything. At the end of it, que σήμερα, like if I'm looking at it, I'm saying, you know what? This was done professionally. On a community access channel. So yes, that is actually something that I am really proud of. So from the start to the end, I wanted to be professional. I wanted to be respectful, and I started that way, and I wanted it to end that way.
Is there anything that comes to mind that you could tell us as far as a highlight of the 25-year span? And then after, a low point? First, we'll go with the highlight.
Sure. The highlight, there's so many, honestly. But if I have to pick something, when I realized that I was the longest running live program, Greek or not Greek, in the country on Community Access Channel, that was a real high. That was like, wow. And that was true on the 20th anniversary. That was announced by BNN on the 20th anniversary. So 5 years later, it was still the case. That was definitely a high point for me in terms of content, being able to do a live shoot, out of studio was another high point. And also, I have two more, actually. The fact that the way we ended it, obviously, I mentioned that before. But one of my absolute positively favorite things is the young people. They were so young, whether it was from Anatolia College or from the area churches, or whether they, they caught my eye, and I thought that, they need, people need to see this, whether it was a young boy who plays amazing piano and the way he does the whole, not because there's no other kid that plays the piano, but, somebody from the Homogenia and the way he did it and how serious he would take it. Or, having somebody co-host with me, because she was such a huge fan. And honestly, she remembered more about my programs than I could possibly ever remember. And those have to be the top times, and then things that they remember. I remember, one of the young kids, the first child that came on the program is currently, working in Greece, has his master's, and had got a job in Crete. And, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so proud of him. So that's the highest, that's the highest point of my,
and you've affected many lives, that goes to,
I don't know if I've affected many lives. I just wanted to, anything I've done, I've just wanted to make a difference. That's all I've ever wanted to do, is make a difference. Whether it was presenting information, and because I've wanted to make a difference, I did, bring to the table subject matter that was really not so easy to do. personal stuff, about my personal health, my son's situation with being bullied, whether a child needs some extra help, because Greeks tend to hide that, and whether a child needs some extra help with in school and they don't get the help that the child needs because τι θα πούνε οι άλλοι, something I never really cared about.
Thank God you said when you affect a child's life that needs help because of τι θα πούνε οι άλλοι, I just want to strangle everybody.
It happens today too, and I do because of the everything that I, as a parent, as a mother, went through. I do provide service to anybody that, I'm here for any parent that needs that support for their child, to advocate for them in the school setting. I was never afraid. People came to me and said, oh, people will know and your child will never get married. Well, I've heard it all, trust me. And here's what I had to say. The day that my son graduated, he graduated high school with a 4-year all-inclusive scholarship that included dorm, books, pencils, pens, and everything in between. Also, the same child got all expenses paid to Japan because of the way because in his junior year, he was selected by the Japanese government, because of his language skills in the Japanese language. So wow. No, I don't believe that changes your life. There's nothing wrong with if your child has not a problem, but something that they need help with, or there's services out there to help our children to be able to better themselves because we don't all learn the same way. No. And not everybody goes kindergarten, grade school, high school, and then college. Everybody takes different roads to get to wherever they are supposed to be in their life. And there are things out there, and we should be supportive and not judging. So yeah, even when I did those, I heard, people goes, oh, κοίτα την τώρα τι κάνει και βάζει το παιδί σε τέτοια θέση, but then again, I did hear people like, oh, you have, can I say balls on the podcast?
Yes.
You can.
Yes, you can.
So one message was, oh my God, you have balls. And I don't know if that was the case, but, I did do that because I think we needed that. I think that if more people, were true, honest, and to themselves, first of all, instead of going, oh, κοίτα το μαλλί του Φώτη, το δικό μου γιατί δεν είναι έτσι, αντί να πει μπράβο ρε Φώτη, ωραίο το μαλλί σου. But δεν ξέρω αν είναι ζήλια ή competition ή τι είναι, δεν είναι ωραίο πράγμα. But so as a low point are there was nothing ever that happened on the air that I would consider it as a low point.
Did you ever have any Jerry Springer moment or any guest that was acting up or anything like that?
No.
Because I just think 25 years is that's enough time for anything to happen. Well,
listen, I've had a guest on that he had such a dirty tie. Okay, there was so many stains on his tie that I could not. And this was a timed interview because the person was going for an elected position and everything was timed, equal time for everybody. That's the rules. Yeah. And I couldn't think of the questions. And if you know me for more than a minute, you know that coming up with a question or talking is not an issue. All I could do is stare at how do you come on the air with a stain on your tie? I've had a couple of people through the years when we would take calls on the air before technology was able to red button them out, because it was 100% live. There was no, cut time. You guys know that. Sure. Yeah, then, and they said a few bad words on the air. That's it. I've had guests come in where they've said, or guests of guests that have come in, I said, oh, absolutely. Feel free to bring your guest in. Not a problem. And then, they would go down this hall and say, oh, I can do this show better than she can. What can I do? So that's happened as well. But yeah, no, I think, comments from people closer to me that, Tito Kani Safto? Why are you the president of the federation? Why are you involved with the parade? Why are you the president of the church? Why are you on the board of the church? Why are you on the board on this? Why you do that? You should stay home and take care of your kids and, and your family, as if my kids be narane, I didn't take the.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it all. I'm sure you've heard it all. But as Ari had mentioned, being on a live set for so many years, I'm sure, looking back, some things have happened, some things haven't happened. But any bloopers? I mean, we get technical difficulties during today's times. But has anything ever stuck to your mind about a blooper while being live?
No, other than the couple of people that had called and said bad words on the air.
So that's not allowed on community access, right?
No, it is not. No. That I can't think of anything not that here's what, I mean, did I say stuff that probably didn't come out right, or did I forget or whatever? Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. But I always joked about it. I would nothing that sticks out, at least to me. I mean, bad hair days, of course.
You seem like a professional. You seem like a professional who runs a tight ship. You know what you want. You know how to, after, all the experience that you've had doing it, you probably made it like clockwork. So there's that much room for stuff to go bad. Unlike us, which that happens all the time to us because we're not there yet.
I had a guest from Greece came on, so I guess that I don't know if this will be a blooper, but it was one of those moments where I went to the hotel to pick up the person from the hotel. He was here for the parade, so the person wasn't there. So I called, and there was no answer. And then I called the liaison that was with them. The person said, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not at the hotel, blah, blah, blah." I'm parked right in front of him. And I'm like, "Okay, well, where is so-and-so?" And he says, "I don't know. I haven't seen him." I said, "Well, I'm supposed to be picking him up." Because, "Well, I don't know. I'm not in the hotel. I'm not at the hotel." Again, I'm parked right in front of him, and he was smoking a cigarette. And I said, "Okay." I kept calling, nothing. Now it's almost time to go to the studio, because the show goes on no matter what. So, off I go. I'm still calling. I've left messages, nothing. So I get on the air. Meanwhile, I make a few other phone calls and I find out where this person is. So I had to do a 60-minute show without a guest and only prepared for this.
Oh, my God.
So this person has later on, and for years and years and years and years, and actually recently, I've been interviewed by two major newspapers or media in Greece about this subject years later, because he's commonly referred to in Boston as Mr. Gucci. So he blew off my show so he can go and buy Gucci. It's a long story, but yes, his name is, you know what? I call him Mr. Gucci for so long that I don't even, I blank out. So then I did a whole entire show on Mr. Gucci. So there you go. I guess go on and on and on. And let me tell you, if you could take my blood pressure on that show, it would have been through the roof.
Explosive.
I could imagine. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you definitely, to your point, I'm sure you've definitely come across situations that if you look back, I'm sure you can think of many more. But yeah, you never know. And we tip our hats off to you for a live show, because what we do is recorded. So at least we have some leeway. You can fix things, but
if I went like that, you can fix it, right?
We're not going to fix that.
I'm going to loop it over and over again now. So the whole episode is you doing that.
But we've had some fun moments. You brought us on for different reasons. I remember doing, a handful of tastings on your show, which were pretty cool, because after those segments, I remember clearly how many folks had actually made comments to me about, they were not, it was just informative, but it was fun. We did some food and wine shows with you on this segment. We brought tons of food.
We learned about wine through you, Foti. Now, if I want to impress, the only thing I can remember is the legs of the wine. And I sound like I know what I'm talking about.
That was awesome. And then with Greek Boston and so forth, we had a lot of great interactions. Whenever popular artists came through, they came onto the show. We got to listen to their interviews with you. It was just the variety.
You did a great service for the Boston Greek community.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
And now, what's Eleni doing these days?
Oh, Eleni does a lot. I mean, Eleni does a lot, including I've been doing comedy.
Yes.
Something that I got at least, maybe thought about that for 2 seconds, and that's about it. And then I did comedy.
So wait, hold on. Let me cut in here. So you didn't train and plan and practice for years and years and years like a lot of stand-ups. It kind of just got in your head and you just jumped up on stage and started doing it.
All right, Adi. So if you really want to know, I leave the house I was leaving the house in the morning to drive my oldest daughter to the station. And so here, just don't tell anybody. I was in my pajamas and I put my coat on and with my pantofles, and I drove my daughter to the station. In the parking lot, as I looped out of the parking lot and back onto the street, as God is my witness, I turned around. It popped in my head and I said, you know what? I want to do stand-up comedy.
That's amazing.
As God is my witness. And then I called Tina Papadopoulos and I said, and the joke that I make about Tina, you can't call her until after 12 o'clock. And for whatever reason, she answered my call in the morning. And I said, listen, I want to do stand-up comedy. You can put it all together. I don't want any money out of it. I just want to do it just for the hell of doing it. I said, if you put it all together, you want to charge a ticket and use that ticket to pay for whatever needs to be paid. That's fine. I just want to do it. Maybe 3 days later, she calls me and she says, would you be willing to do it on November 3rd? And I said, November 3rd, that's my daughter's birthday. I said, but yeah, okay, she can deal with it. And she goes, well, will you be okay opening for Basil? And I go, I was what? Opening for Basil? And she said, yeah. I said, yeah, sure. And that was it. So I've opened for Basil, I've opened for Taruja, I opened for Ellen Karas, and I've worked with Angelo a few times. And Gasco Sadelis, and none of these you can call my children and ask them. I've done nothing.
So how does that happen? Like, how do you have
an epiphany
to just jump up on stage and do it? And from what I haven't seen personally, but from what I hear, like you have your audience, and that audience really relates to your comedy.
Because I talk about what happens in my house. And the thing is that for years on social media, I've talked about Miss Maggie, which is my third child, and the death of me. And I've always talked, and I've posted the stuff that I deal with her. And people through the years have come up to me and said to me, oh, thank you for posting that. I thought I was the only one. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? How can you be the only one? We are all going through this. So then after that, I kept going. A couple of times, I remember a specific time, a professor at an area university says to me, can I ask you a question, Kiria Vidali? And I'm like, yeah, just call me Eleni and you can ask me anything you want. And she says, the stuff that you put from Miss Maggie, is that all true? I went, yeah, who has the time to lie? I don't. I have 3 kids, a dog, a husband, a house. I work. I have a business. I have the show. Do you think I have time to come up with lies? Like, I barely have time to sleep. And so the next day I said to Maggie, we had gone out to breakfast, and I said, so a professor that I met over at the Greek consulate at an event asked me if the stuff that I write about Miss Maggie is true. And she goes, oh, you should have said to her, honey, this is not CNN. No fake news here. So I posted that too. So that's what I did. I get up and I talk about, I for the most part, I've talked about, how my oldest daughter and has amazing conversations with me. And they include what's for dinner, who's driving me to the station, who's picking me up from the station. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's actually really impressive, because anytime I think about getting on stage, it has to be very, very planned. It has to be very, very thought out, because I can't even imagine just getting up there and holding the attention of the audience, and not just holding the attention of the audience, making them laugh, which I think making people laugh is an absolute skill. Like that, it's not something that you just can do. Like you You have to know how to do it. You have to either have a natural talent or a very honed talent. So the fact that you didn't hone it, you just jumped up there and you did it, means that you are a natural. So that's really cool.
I'm just a natural. What can I say? Let me tell you something. I've presented the parade, emceed the parade for 20 times. Mm-hmm. I've done the city of Boston's parade. There's hundreds of thousands of people that have heard me, whether I've said something wrong or right, or I didn't tone it right, because you get all the criticism. Oh, you should have said this, or you should have done that. You get all that afterwards. But here's what I've always believed, that αν δεν γελάσουμε λιγάκι, το μόνο που θα κάνουμε είναι θα κλάψουμε. And you know what? We need to laugh. We need to make light of things. And again, I don't know if this sarcastic humor that came with my, because I'm almost 28 years old now. So it came with age. I don't know. Getting up in front of an audience has never, ever scared me. Actually, one time I was extremely nervous that I can remember, and that was when I was honored, and talk about an honor. This has to be one of the biggest honors I couldn't even imagine getting. And that was a Women's Historic Association honored me along with Julie Kahn, who is just an amazing media innovator. She's the first woman to ever have anything to do with sports radio. She's extremely well respected. She's currently the president of Regan Communications. And along with Beverly Beckham, one of this country's biggest reporters, she actually had a lot to do with the uncovering in the Catholic Church. Oh, wow. And me, I thought that they were there had to be something wrong as an innovator in media. So that I didn't take it. I was so shocked that I thought that I could just get up on stage and say a few words until I think it was the night before that morning. And I'm like, couldn't breathe. I was having an anxiety attack. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. And I get to the Granite Links, extremely large group of people. I think there was like 300 in the room, fancy event. And there had to be 30 something people from friends and family who came. I had it written out and I needed to use it. And that's probably one of the very few times I've wrote anything. And I was so nervous. I couldn't even metapo all these years of talking. So when I do the comedy, I said, you know what? That's the feeling I had, the worst feeling of ever speaking that I ever had speaking in front of an audience. So you take that and then you realize that people that came to have fun. And if people that didn't come to have fun at a comedy show and just came to heckle you, those I can deal with because I just pretend they're one of my kids.
I love it. Yeah. Because I was going to say, I was going to actually ask you, are you prepared for any heckling? But you seem, just you as a person, you seem like you could handle it. So I have no fear for you.
Honey, I've gotten to the point where Miss Maggie is 19 years old. You think I can't handle a heckler?
Good point. Very good point. Wow.
That's awesome.
This has been great. This has been awesome, Eleni. We took a little road down memory lane with you. And it's great to see that you're on to new ventures and endeavors in your life.
There's more to come, Foti.
I know there is, and that's why we're definitely going to want you to come back on the segment for updates. And maybe before we do kind of sign off with our segments, is there anything else you want to share with us? Anything that comes to mind?
Well, in terms of me, Eleni Vidalis is here. She's not, just because I'm not on air doesn't mean in front of a camera. Sometimes we have to, reinvent ourselves to make it interesting for ourselves. So, you never know. People should just, don't count me out yet. Media has changed. So you never know if I pop up on a podcast somewhere one day. You never know. You never know. And in terms of what I want to say is this, that we're all human beings. We all are. And if we can't respect one another and our beliefs, and if we can't believe that we're all in this race called life together, then you know what? You need to step aside and let people live. This is not a competition. And we can do this with better if we did it all together. I'm not going to become the next, lessons learned or whatever those things are. But this is something that I feel passionately about, that we need to help one another. We need to support one another, whether you're Greek, Spanish, Irish, African American, wherever you're from, we need to support one another. This is not a competition. This is called life, and we need one another, and we can't judge people. Bravo. Right now, I know I'm guilty. I'm judging how handsome you both are, and I didn't put any makeup on. But anyway.
Well,
that's all to you.
Well, thank you. No, very, very well said, Eleni. Message definitely heard that I think everyone needs to hear. We've seen too much through our time, and there's no reason why we can't act and behave exactly what you just said.
Go ahead, Eleni.
Can I say it in Greek real quick? It's like, τι θα κερδίσουμε το να μην υποστηρίζει ο ένας τον άλλον. Δεν κερδίζεις τίποτα. Απλώς χάνεις το σεβασμό.
Yeah. And sometimes we question, so you do that, and then what happens? You push somebody to the side, you push somebody down, then what is accomplished?
Yeah.
If that's what makes you feel better, then I'm sorry for you.
Yeah, there's something wrong. But, I enjoyed this very much. And I enjoyed hearing, your journey, the memories we shared, your memories, just everything you have to say. And the way you ended it just now, like the icing on the cake, it was so well said. And so much of what we believe, you put into words. So thank you for that. And
thank you both very much for everything that you do, everything you've done, for having me on, because you guys have been in the Greek community and have supported it, and everybody does it in their own way, and we need to acknowledge that, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. And I just want to say, Eleni, you have a personality and you have a voice that I would love to hear more from. So hopefully, like you said, you're going to be popping up in various places. So people, stay tuned to hear her name again. And we would love to have you back on this podcast. We would love to work with you on many different things. And we'll talk about these things on a future date. But I just want to say thank you so much again for taking time out.
Thank you.
With us. Thank you, Foti.
Thank you, Eleni.
Foti, can you just tell me what hairspray you use? Come on, tell me.
Greek olive oil.
Wow. I believe it. But thanks everybody out there for watching and listening. Thank you once more, Eleni, and we will see you all next time. Have a great, safe day, and we'll see you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.